Good morning. Welcome to Remember How It Was. I am Justin Washington. I'm down here in Greensboro, North Carolina, and I am with my sister.
I am Wambui Bahati, and I am in Harlem, New York City. Today is Tuesday, July 18th, 2023.
We try to just do memories, and we're trying to do the memories for Greensboro, our surrounding areas, because we grew up in Greensboro. We spent a lot of our youth in Goldsboro, North Carolina, with our grandparents and some of my relatives. And so we try to capture some of these memories. And I think right now we're about on our 16th episode.
This will be our 16th episode. And
go ahead.
So today we are going to be talking about different things that help us get through. They were like our angels, different people who served as angels, who helped us to make a good decision when we were about to make a bad one, and just talk about things that we wish we had. If we could teach our 10-year-old self something, if there was something we could go back in time and would have taught ourselves, what would that have been? So we're going to touch on those kind of things today and tell some stories about just what saved us. Because so my brother, I wanted you to start with that story you were telling about. Before I go on, for those of you that may be new, there are 4 children in our family. There are 4 siblings. There's my sister Roberta. Then there's me. I was born in 1950. Then I have a brother, Joel, that was born in 1952. And my brother here, Justin, our baby brother, was born in 1957. And so we have all these memories of growing up in Greensboro from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Okay, so share this story. You were telling me about a story about something that helped you that may have saved you from getting on a path that would have been not a good thing for you.
Yeah. This story happened late 70s. I went to service in 78. So this is prior I came out of high school in 75 and went to A&T, North Carolina A&T College for a couple of years. And I wasn't a wild child, but I was heading down a road. And there's a place in Greensboro that is torn down now. It was called The Hill. And The Hill is where at that point in time, anything illegal, that's where it was. That's where the happening was. You want to be around some gangsters, mobsters, pimps, or whatever. That's where it was. You go to The Hill.
What streets was that at? What streets? Where was that? Where was that
The
at?
Hill it was on Best Street, the corner of Best and Julian Street. And actually, we lived on down the bottom of the hill of Julian Street, but the Best is kind of up the hill. And what I think kind of saved me, and I didn't know that it saved me at that time. In the late, like I say, it was 77. I'm gonna use that year, 77. Me and some friends went up there to hang out with all the people that just hung there, all the tough guys and tough girls. And this one lady, and to me, she was a tough looking lady, but she approached me out of all the people that's up there, and she told me, "You don't belong here. Leave." And I'm looking at my boys, I'm looking at her like, and I wasn't going to raise up because I wasn't that guy. So I left. And that's not what caused me to join the military. But after between me and bad grades and stuff like that in college, I went into the military. And that was like 78. Then as I'm coming back home in the 80s, man, the crack epidemic hit hard. And The Hill was like wiped out. Everywhere you turn, not all my friends, a lot, over 60, 65, 70% of my friends became crackheads. And I don't know where I would have been in that, but I remember that day when I had an opportunity just to do some dirt. She pointed me out of everybody up there and told me I didn't belong there. And I took my little punk butt home. I left. I left. So I don't know if that was a sign or whatever, but I got out of there, and now, by grace, I've never been on any drugs or anything like that.
Yeah, so I like that story because it says that to me, it's kind of like there were people watching out for us, but because by the grace of God, we could have gone in any direction. Now, the one thing that I am grateful for was that when we were growing up, we had role models that not only at our school, our teachers, but our parents, our church community. We had the community we grew up in, we were very blessed to have been growing up in that community. People, even though we were born when Jim Crow laws were still on the book, we were dignified people, and people taught it was about respecting yourself and respecting the people in your community. And I feel good about that. I think of the people up and down the block. I'm going to miss somebody's name, but I remember the Coles, the Wirches, the Camerons. I remember Margie Young and her mama. I remember the Moorheads, Broadhurst. There were some just up and down the street. It was just people that were just really positive role model people, people who just seemed to really care about the community and the people in the community. And I'm happy that I was able to look up to them. I love the way the people carried themselves, the way the people dressed. And everybody was just about, like I said, even though we were under Jim Crow, we didn't let that interfere with us being proud of who we were. And I'm grateful for that today. Yeah.
Well, you know, as far as being a kid in that era, I didn't see Jim Crow because, you know, our parents, and like you guys are older than me, you probably saw it, but I just knew on my block, in my neighborhood, it was just me and my peers. And we played, like I say, if we went downtown or went about somewhere out of the neighborhood, we felt something. But we knew when we was at home, everything was normal on June Street, Douglas Street, Broad Avenue, Bragg Street. Everything was normal, our normal. Everything was normal to us. We had our own school that we found out. We told a story about how school became became segregated, but all of a sudden it turned black. It wasn't segregated; it was just a black school.
Right.
But it supposedly turned segregated. But but anyway, we might have to go back and revisit that. But
yeah. So tell me about the people. There were people who looked out for us, and at times, like even that lady, I'm sure that night you were feeling some type of way. Who is she to tell me I need to go home? But that could have been just a defining moment that saved you from being with the wrong crowd and continuing to hang out there and go in a different direction. And so you were talking about, I know I had some teachers that put me in different directions. You talked about a teacher that was very strict with you, but because of that, you actually started studying and doing what you had to do. Who was that? Mr. Payne.
This guy was James Payne. I'm gonna have to give a shout out to James Payne because, as I told in the earlier episode, that this guy was a disciplinarian. I thought he was half crazy because he was such a disciplinarian, but I'm a little kid. But actually, he put me, and I'm pretty sure a lot of kids that were, I don't know, I could have been considered, even though I had parents at home, but I could have been considered an at-risk youth because I was so impressionable. And he kind of whooped impressionable out of me. He made me pay. He made me pay attention. I'm sure I wasn't the only one, but he was a guy that you know he was wore a tie to school. And back in the day, he wore a necktie, and you know he talked kind of gruff. And he had his metal scrap he called Doc. He had his weapon called Doc. He used to whoop us in the hand, and that was allowed then. And then the next year I had a guy named Mr. Yours, who wasn't quite as disciplined, but he was our band teacher. So he had a lot of structure in me. So those guys back to back, they kind of put a little fear in me, but made me pay attention to some things. Mr. Payne he made me pay attention, and Mr. Yours gave me something to pay attention to by putting me in the band.
Okay. Well, I remember Mr. Yours. He was one of my band instructors too. I'm trying to think of the guy who was my band instructor when I got to Dudley when I was in high school. Oh, he went to our church.
I think his name was Williams. Was it Williams?
I think that came after him. Because you came after me. But I can't recall. But but Mr. Yours was wonderful. Well, we had some wonderful teachers who taught us discipline, and we weren't always happy about that. And for instance, being in the band, as far as I was concerned, was just about discipline. Even today, I say sometimes, I don't know, this thing, dress right. I don't know if that's an Army term or not. Is that something?
Yeah,
But I know in the band,
dress right,
we had
dressed.
to
Yeah, dress right.
make sure we were in line with everybody else. So they would say dress right, meaning you got to kind of see what's going on the right of you, and you don't want to be up too far or too back. And so it's just a whole discipline thing. I know also, I remember the guys. The guys were taught to walk on the outside. If a guy was walking with you on a girl on the sidewalk,
on the street.
Do you remember that, right?
Yeah.
The guys walked on the outside. Yeah. Now, I guess that was so that if a car came or a bullet, they would be on the outside to get that first. I don't know. But it was like a protection thing where the guys just kind of it was kind of innate. You just looked out for the girls.
But in those days, I remember like the sitcoms used to come on. They like the guys. I don't know if anybody did it in real life, but the guys would see a puddle and put their coat on the puddle for the woman to walk across. I don't know if anybody did that.
Chivalry.
But you know what? Chivalry. I don't know if anybody did that, but like that's how we were taught. If there's a big puddle, put your coat down. Now, Mama probably would have had enough idea about that, but
So we kind of like
chivalry was taught.
We had to look out. One of the things, too, that's different today that I'm grateful for, at that time, I wasn't even sure how I felt about it. But we were like in the church. Now, what I know now from being in the church as an adult is that a lot of things, I didn't really know the Bible, like, because it seemed like I was there. But the fact that we were there and there was this overhead thing of how to be morally correct and certain things you had to do, it made a difference. I realize now, going back to church, that there were a lot of things that we didn't really go deep. But it seemed like we didn't really have to go deep because we understood there were certain boundaries. And I may not know what all the books were in the Bible and all the stories and all the details and all of that, but it was just this cloud overhead that kind of kept you in line,
Well, the thing about that, I can say for me, I think it's the same thing for other people, but I know for me, the fact that the school we went to and the church we went to were kind of related. Because you see the same people, the same teachers would be the leaders of Sunday school and the leaders at church. And so, like you always had to be on point at that time. So that really taught us.
We went to Providence. We went to Providence Baptist Church, in Greensboro when we were growing up.
So we was brought up kind of with this grace thing, because like this Miss Poole, Miss Lady Brown McCorn, I'm missing some names, but these people, like, you see them at the store, you see them at church, you see them, and everything was about
Jameson, the hair lady who did the hair, Jameson, and Miss Eula Whitley.
That was Mama's friend. That was Mama's friend.
It was, and then a lot of, like, Miss Walker, a lot of our teachers who became Miss Moon. A lot of our teachers were at the church, and so it wasn't like a separation, and so that was really good. So,
but you know what? I got a story. Plus, now, because I found out I'm that guy. Because remember how they said it took us a neighborhood to raise a village. I'm not neighborhood to raise a village. Anyway, but the thing is, I remember it was so much ownership on our street. People would look at you and you knew. They look at you, I know your mama. They look at you, I know you better straighten up. But now, neighbors don't know neighbors. Neighbors don't know neighbors. No. And I remember, like I said, I'm kind of that guy now. I like think I ain't got no place else to. That's how I got no place else to go. So you gonna respect from this side of my house to that side of my house. You're not gonna be parking your car and acting the fool. I'm that guy. I didn't be that guy, but I'm that guy now. But the story was, there was this lady around the corner on Omaha Street from us growing up. And I remember I was walking home from school and I was coming down that far. I was coming down Omaha Street and snow was out. And I remember at this lady's house, it was a snow bank. I slipped and fell down by myself. I got up. And as I walked in, this lady came out the door and she was fussing at me. And what it was, she saw somebody fall. She saw somebody fall. And she thought I walked past them because the snowbank was kind of high, but it was me that fell. It
Mm-hmm.
was me that got up. But she came out of the house and she laid me out. Said, "You go back there and help that boy. You don't need to be I mean, she cussed me. Well, they cussed me out, but she
Oh,
worded me out. And she said, and I'm trying to say, it was me that fell down. She was fussing at me for not helping
oh,
me.
she saw somebody fall and she thought you were like leaving them. You were the one that caused them to fall. So she wanted you,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, so I got fussed out for not helping me. I was like, so I took it. I had to explain to her. I said, "Yes, ma'am." I didn't. Nowadays I think the way I see kids, some kids would have went in on her, but
Oh,
I just,
yes, it's it's
I went on
very,
home. I just went on home. Yeah, but she went in
yes,
on me for not helping
yeah.
me.
When you were talking about the hill, my memory of the hill was that my memory is that there was a candy store on the corner there at the hill.
Uh,
And my memory is that always trying to save out a dime or a nickel or a dime so that I could get candy, so that when I'm walking home, you come back through the tunnel and you're on Julian Street, and then I'd get to that candy store. I'd have to get me a Payday or an Almond Joy, something that had nuts in it. And then that's why I'm nutty. Anyway, then I would, and so that's what I remember of the hill. I also remember that I thought I knew we were not, wealthy and all that, but I thought we were okay until one time after I had moved to New York. There was an article in the newspaper and it talked about, there was some mention of that hill and that area, our street, as they referred to it as, I don't know if they were used the word ghetto or it was something derogatory about how they described the neighborhood. And I thought, oh, I didn't know. Now, they may have been describing the neighborhood after, because it did change greatly, right? From the 50s, 60s, and 70s, it changed.
In the 80s, the early 80s, it turned into, like I said, ran off from there about maybe 77, 76, 77, but I went to service 78. But in the early 80s, that was the worst place in the world, man. It was everybody was selling, either you was on drugs or you was selling drugs. It was rough. It was rough. Like I said, I
It
never hung out
became,
there, but I've been through there. It became a place where you didn't want to go, a place you didn't want to mention. Because
yeah.
I remember, like, when y'all used to take me up there to get the hot dogs or whatever. It was a happy
Mm-hmm.
place. It was a happy place, man. But
Yeah,
then
it was.
all of a sudden it turned dark. And I'm gonna tell you a story. This story's kind of leading into it was stories in the 80s. I'm gonna leave the 70s to get to the 80s. When I was in the service, a friend of mine, everybody's like, a lot of people was hooked on crack. Like I said, a lot of people got hooked on crack. And I had one of my good friends who became an addict. And he is blessed. I was blessed that he told me the story of how he came about to be that way. But he cleaned himself up. But anyway, he had a house by himself. He was a grown man living in a house by himself. And he wasn't on crack at this time. Friends would stop by and turn him on to this free drug. They would turn him on. He just like, okay, cool. And then all of a sudden he said they would come to his house, and next thing you know, he was chipping in. And then he told me, then one day one day he was desiring the drug. He drove up to the hill, and when he got to the hill, he realized then, said, man, I came up here to buy some crack. I came by myself to buy some crack. And by grace of God, that was his wake up call. And he told me that at that time, this house that he was renting, he gave up his house. He moved back home with his parents, and he just went cold turkey. He went cold turkey, and he got clean. But I remember one day I asked him, I said, man, what happened? He told me his story, and I'm like, man, it was that quick. It was that easy. Like Mom used to always tell us, like, misery loves company.
Misery loves company. It's easy to get in trouble, hard to get out. Those were her two sayings. Misery loves company. It's easy to get in trouble, hard to get out. Yeah. So, well, and mostly in the 70s, definitely in the 70s, and for a big portion of the 80s also, I was doing road shows. I was traveling theater shows. And it was during the 70s going into the 80s. Drugs were very just prevalent in the theater. I mean, that's like, you hear about it all the time, but I was there firsthand to see that at the end of the night, people, it seemed like understanding that theater people love drugs, people would be outside the stage door. Like, there'd be your fans, and then there'd be these people waiting over here for whatever you want, we got.
Yeah.
And so to me, it was like after the show, most of the time I just wanted to eat, but it was easier to get drugs a lot of times at night than it was to get food. And I, because of my fear of, I always feared not losing, which I think is the best thing God could have done for me, is giving me that fear of losing control, because I would lose control without drugs, So I had this fear of losing control. I tried marijuana. It made me paranoid. I could, no. And then, like you say, people give you stuff free. So people were giving us free cocaine in the beginning. And then when it was time to buy it, I wasn't willing. To me, I wasn't willing to part with my money, thank goodness. And the thing that I did do in the beginning was smoke cigarettes when I first went to New York, because I was in the theater. And at that time, smoking was what you did if you were in the theater. Everybody smoked. So I didn't like smoking because our daddy had smoked so much. I knew it wasn't a good thing, but I'm trying to be a part of the group and be, I started smoking. And one of my favorite things was to buy these fancy cigarette holders. And I was just, I was just all up in it.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did. And then it became a thing where it was a real good icebreaker at a party to say, oh, do you have a cigarette? Or do you want a cigarette? And that's how I met Jimi Hendrix. Was one night, a friend of mine who worked at the Fillmore East, which was a big concert venue in the East Village in New York City, had invited me to sit in the sound booth to watch Nina Simone. So I'm sitting in the sound booth, and then Jimi Hendrix, who played there often, he was often the star there, but he came into the sound booth and he had two women with him, and there were only 2 chairs in the booth, and I'm thinking, well, I'm not giving up my chair for nobody.
Rosa Parks.
I'm not getting up. And so he sat down in the chair, and the 2 women sat on the floor near him. And then I didn't say anything to him, because what do you say to Jimi Hendrix? What do you say? So, but he saw I had a pack of Kool. And so later on, because he didn't say nothing to me either, later on, though, he did say, "Could I have one of your Kools?" And I'm like, sure. And so that was my interaction with Jimi Hendrix. I also wanted to share this other story with you, which probably has nothing to do with nothing, but it talks about, when I think of celebrities and myself at the time, I used to be very kind of shy, and I didn't know what to say to people who were celebrities. That's all different now. I'm all in. I'm all in. But I was touring with a show called The Wiz, and on this particular night, I had gone to the theater. We were in Cincinnati, Ohio. I had gone to the theater, and I was dealing with a case of laryngitis, and I sounded like really bad. But I was going to try to do the show, because the worst thing in my head ever is to imagine a show going on and someone playing my part. I'm not in it, and someone else is doing me. I just always want to do every show. And so when the company manager heard me talk, they said, "No, you're going to go home. You're not going to do no show with a voice like that." So they sent me back to the hotel, and I went down to the restaurant. I ordered my food, and I was eating, and a woman came over to me and said, "Do you mind if I sit down with you and eat? I just hate eating alone." And I said, "Okay." And I looked up, and it was Patti LaBelle. And so she sat down, and I did not say 2 words. What do you say to Patti LaBelle? I don't know. I think it would be different now, because I'm a different person in a different space. Yeah, and a lot of times people can't get me to shut up. But at that time, it was like, I was so in awe. It was like, I don't know what to say to her. And she talked to me, and I would maybe said, okay, yeah. But she must have thought, what is wrong with this person? I just could think of nothing to say to Patti LaBelle. And I wish I had that to do all over again because it would be
Yeah.
totally different now. But
Yeah.
anyway, I
Yeah.
just thought I'd throw that in there as as one of my. But let me tell you though about the smoking. What caused me to stop smoking is we went to. I went with a show to Denver, Colorado, and when I would do the show in Denver, Colorado, it felt very different. It was difficult to do. What used to be easy, I mean, I could sing that little song, and then Denver, Colorado, I was struggling. And it took such effort to do what used to be easy. I'd come off stage and I'd go, and so I thought it was cigarettes. I said, dear God, I won't smoke no more. If you just let me make it through these shows, I swear I'm never going to smoke another cigarette. So I made a deal with God that if he allowed me to live through Denver, because I thought I was dying, that I would never smoke again. And so I made a deal with God. And then, like, just as we were leaving after a week of it, I found out there were oxygen tanks in the wings. That Denver, Colorado has what they call thin air or no oxygen.
Yeah.
So shows that come there, sports people that come there, they have to come and get used to breathing there if they're doing something strenuous. And so I didn't realize everybody else was struggling, but I thought it was a me thing. So I made this deal with God that I was giving up cigarettes. And then after I found out it wasn't the cigarettes, I still felt like, well, you know what, I better keep this deal because I don't want him to think. So that's how I stopped smoking. Is like, well, let me not play with God.
Yeah, they gave you they was already giving you air.
Yeah. Yes, I thought it was the cigarettes was killing me, and I was telling God, just let me live. I won't do it no more. And then I said, oh, I better keep it because. So after that, I never did smoke anymore. So that was it's funny how things happen.
Yeah, but smoking was huge because I know we kind of flipped topics, but everybody, those men who I mentioned earlier, everybody would smoke. They would. Everybody, you see somebody, they always would have a cigarette in their hand. They would just always not in the classroom, but they always when they go outside, they would always prop up, and it just looked cool. It just, and I think
it just looked cool.
I wanted to smoke, but I didn't smoke, but I tried. Well, I'm gonna tell you what, I tried to smoke one time. I went out one day and I bought 2 packs of Marlboros. All right, I bought 2 packs.
2 packs.
2 packs. I'm about to start. I'm about to be a smoker. Anyway, I think I may have smoked 3 or 4 of those cigarettes, man. It wasn't for me. I just stayed sick. I was sick. I said, man. I gave them up. It wasn't for me. But people, I knew pretty much. I go to percentages again. About 80% of the people I knew smoked, and we were kids. Everybody was smoking.
When you think about when we were kids, smoking wasn't that taboo for adults. Like if you recall, in fact, I recall some of the best Christmas gift you could give somebody wasn't take them an ashtray for their house, right? Everybody had ashtrays everywhere.
Yeah.
We talked about when we did the car segment how there were ashtrays in the cars, but everybody had ashtrays in their house because people would come to your house, and in those days, I don't even think they asked. Because it was kind of like a courtesy for you to have an ashtray and to allow them to smoke if they wanted to. Mm-hmm. And so people would just come light up, and you go get, I remember Mama sometimes say, "And go get the ashtray," and you just bring the ashtray, and it was kind of like a courtesy that we're going to allow you to smoke. And so everybody, and plus,
they were nice ashtrays.
They were.
Nice
they were some. Those ashtrays were artwork. Some of those ashtrays were just works of art. All kinds. I remember ashtrays being on levels, like it was like an ashtray where it had 3 tiers of ashtrays. So we were where? We were in P. Lord Company. So a lot of people in our community made their living off of that industry.
Right there.
So yes. So,
But
okay.
I think about this commercial that I remember maybe when I was young. It was like, "Don't smoke in bed." It had a burning bed in the commercial. Like,
Oh,
see, don't
yeah, I
smoke,
remember that.
don't smoke in bed. But that was enough for me. But for soap operas, everybody on soap operas, everybody smoked. It was just
Yeah,
so
all the movie
fashionable.
stars. It was just a smoking thing. I don't know when it was. I guess it was it the late 70s, early 80s? I don't even know when all of a sudden, like, because remember, you could smoke anywhere. You could smoke anywhere in restaurants, whatever.
The restaurants,
And then it
yeah,
became a
yeah.
thing where there were smoking sections. You
Yeah, you had to
had,
sit on one, even though it wasn't a divider. It was one side of the restaurant for smokers, and the other side was for sufferers.
yeah, they were
you know,
the sufferers. Yeah, so yeah, but
but
smoking
they did say we
was
did our
like
part.
a thing. So, yeah.
Okay, but tell me something.
So,
I'm gonna get back on track a minute. I'm gonna get back on track.
okay.
Uh, what would you tell if there was something? What would you tell the 10-year-old you?
Well, one of the things that I would tell my 10-year-old self is to not take everything so seriously because I that drove me nuts, literally crazy. Uh, taking everything, how they say, taking everything to heart, just taking, just that and trying to be a friend to everyone. Because that means I'm trying to please everyone. Okay, so uh, I, my biggest mistake was I felt like trying to not get anybody mad at me. So I was busy trying to please everybody. And that leads to disaster. So I
Yeah,
had to learn to be okay with
yeah,
somebody's not going to like you. Somebody's going to be mad at you. And somebody's going to disagree with what you did. And so if I was 10 years old, I tell myself, look, you cannot please all the people all the time. Find out what it is that you need to do, how you stand, what you believe, and you stick to that. And you cannot worry that some people don't like you. So that I believe that was my biggest, all the way up into young adulthood, trying to make everybody happy, trying to please, trying not to rock the boat. And I realize it's okay to rock the boat. You can't please everyone. In fact, if everybody likes you, there's something wrong with you. That's what I have come to the conclusion of now. If
yeah,
everybody thinks you're
yeah.
okay, then you're not okay. Because how can everybody agree with you and think you're okay? So I just had to, that's the main thing I would teach myself, and just not to take everything too seriously. The things that I thought were serious, nobody's going to remember what you wore to school that day, that they're laughing at today in 1959, that you wore something that was jacked up. That it's okay. No one is going to remember, and no one cares. And if they remember, that's on them. So those are two lessons. The main lesson I wish people tried to tell me, and I wish I had paid attention to, was about, well, there are a lot of them, but the main one is about finances. I wish I had been more frugal and I had been a person that saved and invested in, I wish I had invested in real estate, real estate, real estate. I wished when I was younger, I had done that. So that's like something I wish I would. Do I regret it? I don't really regret the decisions I made because that's who I am. But if I wish that if I had to go back, then I would have listened more carefully to business aspects of how to do business better. I'm very bad. I'm a bad businesswoman, and I wish I was a better businesswoman. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I wish.
yeah,
What about you, bro?
yeah.
What would you tell your 10-year-old self if you could go back with what you know now?
I would tell my 10-year-old self it's okay to be a nerd because
Okay.
I enjoyed books. I enjoyed comic books. But my guys, I can't say anything bad about my guys. But my guys, like, if you had a book, you wasn't quite. Oh man, you just always reading a book or something like that. When I got in the service, I read. I spent some time reading. I just read. I'll go book after book after book, fiction. Um, just a lot of books or just Iceberg Slim, just books. But like, but I guess my peers, they I don't know what they did, but they was like, oh, you got a book. Why you got a book? Why are you taking books? Because mom used to make us take books home. Mama used to make me bring all my books home. I couldn't leave books in the locker. And but
Okay.
I go bring them home. But going back to the topic, I was a nerd, but I taught my nerd to be an extra to hang with the boys. But if I could have divided my time better, I could have been a nerd and hung out too. But I didn't know how
Okay.
to divide my time, so I just kind of went to the streets. I didn't fall off the deep end because I was a nerd, but I was close
Right.
to deep end. But I always managed to go back home to pick up my comic book.
Okay.
you know, I was put it like this. I was a closet nerd, and people that
Okay.
know me, they probably would say, "I see that in him."
Okay. Yes.
Because
Yeah.
I would disappear in a minute.
Yeah. That's part of that peer pressure that we give into trying to please people, trying to not have people get mad at us. So we find ourselves, I mean, everybody doesn't, but I think and it sounds like you did too, find yourself doing things you didn't quite want to do, but you were trying to fit in. So you were just
Yeah.
sometimes doing some stuff that so people wouldn't be mad at you and talk
Yeah.
about you.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And now you
Yeah.
realize, so what?
Man, I don't care.
So
They're gonna
what?
do what
Yes.
they're gonna do what they want to do. Now I love them for who they are.
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
I didn't have to be there. I didn't have to be there. You can just tell me the story. What happened? Yeah, I found out
Yeah.
I didn't have to be there. To see that person.
Yes.
Oh man, we always talk about that guy got beat up or whatever. Y'all could have told me about it. I didn't have to be there to witness it. Y'all could have told me about it. I
See.
didn't have to be
See. Yes. So. So yeah.
there. Yeah.
So I don't know where you want to go at this time,
No,
or
actually, I feel good, man. This is just like we tell everybody. This is me and my sister talking, and we want you
Mhm.
in on a conversation. We're trying to record something for our grandkids, our great grandkids, for our generation. If you get something from it, cool. Share your memories, man. Share your memories with somebody, because don't lock them up. Practice your inner nerd, I guess.
practice your inner nerd. Hey, I love that. So on that note, brother, do you want to wrap it up for this week?
Yes, just wrap it up.
Let's just wrap it up.
Okay.
So
Okay.
go ahead, brother. You were going to say something.
Okay. Thank you for tuning in to another episode, remembering how it was with the Washington family from 615 Julian Street, Greensboro, North Carolina, Douglas Park.
Douglas Park.
Y'all have a good Douglas Park. That's the spot. Anyway, let's go.
Thank you so much for watching. Okay. Again, if you have a topic that you would like for us to speak on, or anything in Greensboro that you would like us to comment on, then please let us know. And if you are somebody in Greensboro, a friend of ours, an acquaintance, or somebody from the 50s, 60s, 70s, no matter where you live, and you want to come on and be our guest, please let us know. So on that note, we're going to say, until next time,
Bye-bye.
peace. God bless.
Bye. Thank you.